Hello, and welcome to Chapter 8 of the Producing Animation book. This chapter is entitled Pre-Production. Page 175 through 177, the role of the producer in structuring the production team. Well, first of all, congratulations. You've now reached the pre-production phase of any project, and that's a major accomplishment. You've already made it through many tough hurdles. You have found a buyer, the funds are in place, you found an audience, so now it's time to pat yourself on the back and get to work. Configurations vary greatly from one project to the next. No two are exactly the same. Elements which lay down the foundation for the production are now assembled, or should be assembled. From now on, how smoothly things progress depends on the producer. Here's a list of the necessary items that you should have in place for pre-production. Number 1, a production-ready script. Number 2, a project Bible, or sometimes it's called a series Bible if it's a television series. Number 3, conceptual artwork. Number 4, a list of assumptions, and we've discussed that already in Chapter 6. Number 5, an approved budget. Number 6, an approved schedule. Number 7, a crew plan. Number 9, asset management and tracking system. A production manager, under the producer's guidance, devises a master schedule. Using script and concept art, break down all tasks into detailed department microschedules. Areas of work scheduled include 1, designs, 2, storyboards, 3, casting, 4, recording sessions and song sessions, or both, 5, color keys. Then items to be included are tracking, 1, 2, planning quotas, number 3, projecting completion estimates for tasks. You'll read more about that in Chapter 11. Page 176, the producer's main task during pre-production. The first would be to recruit a crew and build a team. You need stagger start dates to match the timing. Also delegate duties to administrative staff. Prioritize daily goals in accordance with the production's needs. Make sure the needs of the new employees are met. You should make sure you have allocated for proper space, equipment, and supplies. Arrange informal meet and greet with the producer and the director. Start paperwork. Assign handouts. Parking, IDs, security. Familiarize all employees with the tracking system. Again, there will be more on that in Chapter 11. Arrange ongoing general staff meetings. If off-site, arrange video conferencing. Page 177. Responsibilities toward buyer executive. First, you should facilitate the buyer's input, requests, and demands. You'll do voice casting, voice tracks, main character and location designs, story reels or animatics, assets and pre-visual materials like reels and so on, and accommodate buyer revisions. Page 178. Establish links with various ancillary groups like publicity, advertising, promotions, consumer products, marketing. Inform all regarding voice and musical talent, and inform if and when stars might be attached. Page 179 through 180. Production designer and art director roles in pre-production. You should focus on a solid story and visual style. You should seek out ideal talent. You should develop the look or the design of the show as created by line drawings and color artwork. You should follow the director's vision and lead and supervise development of stylistic choices. Page 180. The differences between production designer and art director. Well, the production designer establishes the look of the film by creating character and location designs. The art director applies this look throughout the film. Page 180. Design phase of post-production. Well, you will invent worlds and create characters, or sometimes what people call universes. And you would go to location, share video, and photo reference. Page 181, the 3 design categories of animation. Number 1, character. You'll be dealing with the main or the primary actors, and B, the incidental or the secondary. Props. Number 2, props. Objects that interact with characters and objects that animate or move, for example, vehicles. And number 3, locations or environments. Those are places or sets where the scenes occur. Props and locations may be given greater or lesser priority based on interactivity, based on their significance to the story. Page 181, Aesthetics versus Budgetary Concerns. Mindfulness as to rendering complexities. For example, the number of furred or feathered characters. Then you should determine if they're essential and can these be simplified or compromised for the budget's sake. Page 181 through 182, Visual Style Guide. This encompasses and conveys all design elements to the entire crew. A comprehensive style guide greatly enhances a project's production value. It's helpful for ancillary efforts in games and merchandising and so on. The director and producer work together to produce this. It is helpful in determining the reuse or recycling of drawings or assets. And 30% reuse is a rule of thumb, how often you can use something a second time. Now, page 183, Character Designs. Visual development artists first invent or develop the characters. They're created with line art or digital renders or a combination of the two. Characters are refined by character designers and supervising animators. And detail pieces may include mouth charts, hand charts, key poses, and special costumes. And here you see figure 8-5. These are facial expressions of one of the characters in the project that the book describes. Page 183, you will be developing a style guide. This is a series of model sheets depicting character poses from front, back, side, or slash profile, or three-quarter view. This is the character that you'll be seeing in different action poses with different facial shapes and expressions. Here you see figure 8.2, different character poses. You'll see a frontal, a middle is a side profile view, and then at the three-quarter angle. Maquettes. We've spoken before about maquettes. These are physical sculpted models are often used to help the artist in seeing what the characters might look like from different angles. On page 185, Location Designs. They're created by production or location designer, or created by line art, digitally, or a combination. The style guide includes the following: exterior shots, interior shots, reverse angle shots, scale reference, which shows a relationship to the characters, and schematic map of overall setting or environment. Here you see figure 8/7 for location design. On page 186, you'll read about prop designs. These are created by the prop designer, for example, vehicles, weapons, and furniture. They're created by line art, digitally, or a combination of a digital art and line art. You need to give instructions on their construction if it's complex, and you have to show a scale reference, their size compared to other characters or other objects. And you need to provide guidelines on how the prop works if that's required. Figure 8-8 is a prop design that would be used. In this case, it's a lamp that's used in a film. Here we see further development of this lamp in figure 8-8. You see the prop design. And on figure 8-9, we see the set and character comparison. These are how large the characters would be to that lamp. Since they're insects, they're scaled appropriately. Page 186 through 189, we see effects design. For example, fire, dust, smoke, glows, etc. And on figure 8-10, we're seeing a glow effect and how it's used proposedly in the film. Page 189, color script and lighting keys. Here the art director maps our palette by creating a color script, establishes the hues, the tones, and the mood of this imaginary world, as you'll see in figure 8-11. These are lighting keys to show how the objects are to be lit. Figure 8-12 shows us a more complete lighting script of how lighting should be affected on the characters. Page 189, color design. Under the art director's guidance, characters and props are colored by color stylists or look development artists. Characters under different lighting conditions, for example, day and night. And test characters against characters to see what they look like alongside each other. And then you'll test character themes. For example, the villain would be in dark purple hues, and in this case the heroes would have bright colors. Page 189 through 190, the model pack. A production manager or the APM or the PDM is responsible. They denote artwork needed for specific sequence, It enhances project's production value and are updated as revisions/improvements/redesigns occur, and they most likely would. Page 191, Asset Production. Creation in 2D realm involves 1. Design/color, symbolizing, and rigging. Page 191, Design/color. This is when a cleaned up line drawing is scanned into the production pipeline. Under guidance of the art director, the color stylist assigns color to the line art. Page 191, Symbolizing. Various object or body parts are created and assigned identifiers. For example, as you see in the television series South Park, you would assign one symbol for each part, for example, a leg or an arm or whatever, and you manage the assets by developing a clear labeling system, and that is very important, especially when you have many people working on the same project at the same time. Page 192, Rigging, number 1. You control or manipulate assets. Your symbols are combined to create objects or characters, and pivot point are selected and adjusted for proper movement. Page 192, Computer Graphic Asset Production. Each step should be done with support of technical directors, or TDs. Special steps involve 1. Modeling, 2. Rigging or articulation, 3. Surfacing and look development, for example, textures. Number 4. Research and development. Each step should be done with the support of technical directors. Page 192, Modeling. With the visual style guide, the modelers would build characters, environments/locations, and props. Note, the more details are given in the textbook, but not necessarily here, since this is familiar ground to computer graphics students, as you see in Figure 8-13, this wireframe of this flying insect. I'm not sure if that's a moth or a butterfly. Page 193, Rigging and Articulation. This obviously is how the work you put into the parameters that you give your character as to how he moves. Page 197, Surfacing and Look Development. It's undertaken by Look Development Team, overseen by Visual Effects Director. All computer graphic objects must undergo surfacing to determine and refine the look. For example, flat or shiny, rough or smooth, fur, feathers, and so on. The chosen treatment is called a texture. It's undertaken by the Look Development Team. And on Figure 8-18, you see Look Development in development. 198, Research and Development. Department in place is to handle specific tech requirements or behaviors. For example, Rapunzel's hair behavior in Disney's Tangled. Page 198 through 199, the voice track. This is one of the more critical steps in production process. You need to find the right voice or the right choice in casting, and hopefully you need to get a great performance out of that performer. A voice track serves as a guideline and source for inspiration, and it also serves as a basis generally for all animation timings. Page 199, Casting. The producer determines casting expectations of the buyer and the executive director. If movie stars are attached, this can be used as a marketing tool. Obviously, a star is going to have higher drawing power than someone who's not. If non-union, casting choices may be limited. Casting director works with the director to narrow down the field. Let's say you might start off with 100 actors and wind up narrowing it down among 6. Usually it's 10% of the people that you call into a casting session are seriously considered for the part. Works up list of potential talent within the budget. If a star talent refuses to audition, one submits as offer only. That means if they're a big enough star, if you were hiring someone along the lines of, say, a Robin Williams, Mr. Williams will not be coming in and trying out for your part because you already know his work. So in this case, you have to hope that what he does is close to what you're hoping. So in that case, you would simply make him an offer rather than have him go through the qualification process. That you schedule an audition or recording sessions. An average duration of a session is 5 to 10 minutes, it says here. I've known them to be quite a bit longer than that, but you don't want to tire out your actor. So they tend to try and keep them very short. A casting director distributes prep materials to agents and talent. This NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement, and that is that whoever tries out for this part must sign it, so they can't talk about it, because again, it's generally projects, for good reason, they're kept secret. The script itself, the character art, and a general information sheet would be provided. Page 171, continuing with casting. The audio audition sessions are directed by the director or the casting director. The decisions on casting are made by the producer, director, and sometimes the buyer executive. Business Affairs Department negotiates the following. If a character bears a resemblance to the actor, clear in advance to make sure it's legally okay. Some other considerations are talent fees, title, credit, size, and placement. As you may or may not know, the size of an actor's literally the size of the text used for the actor in the movie itself and in the advertising is negotiable. Some actors will insist that their names appear above the title, which means it would say Tom Cruise in, and then you have the name of the movie. So that can happen too. But credits are sort of like currency. There's very negotiable, and a lot of times people don't get their name in credits, which should, but it's all about they may choose to get more money instead of getting a credit or getting a bigger credit, and so on. There's publicity involvement, music/singing compensation, soundtrack royalties, publicity interviews, junkets, which is when you go around and publicize the project, and promotional activity fees. Next, page 203, rehearsals. These are done prior to the final recordings. A table read is when you have your actors come in literally and sit around a table and read the script for the first time. Maybe they do it once, maybe they do it 3 times in a day. It usually happens roughly in real time. If it's an hour-and-a-half movie, the table read's likely to be an hour and a half. And then you can do individual rehearsals with individual actors or pairings of actors or pairings of actors. It's beneficial to work with other cast members too, as we can see. Get additional input from director and so on. And it saves time in the final recording sessions because time is money when you're recording in a recording session. Page 202 to 203, recording session preparation. Prior to session start, actors should receive the recording script, the production script. All their paperwork should be done, which would include contracts, documents, tax documents, their I-9s and W-4s in place, any parking information for the facility that they're to be going to, and the phone numbers of the director and the producer and so on. You also would want to show them artwork of what their character would look like. And the story reel, sometimes it's good for them to see some evidence of what it is they're doing as well. The more you can show the actor, the better they're going to get a feel for the character. Any reference or context before being recorded is always helpful. Page 203, recording. Note, it is often helpful to pre-record a timing track without the final talent to try out lines, the interactions, and so on. This can be edited to try out dialogue ahead of time, allowing a polish round before the recording session even begins. Prior communication with the recording studio should include the number of participants you plan on having for the session, the number of microphones that will be needed, and any special needs. Recording sessions can happen in person, preferably, or digitally patched, which is sometimes passable. I've done several sessions with actors in Los Angeles or New York, sitting from my home office in San Antonio. Recording day needs to be established, or if any actor availability is an issue, the director and producer can fly to the talent location for a session there if necessary. And then a sign-in sheet is necessary to record the hours worked by all. And if possible, video record the talent delivering the lines, approved in advance. To try and have the animators on hand to watch the performance session is another option. But if you'll notice, whenever Disney does a voice session, they generally have cameras on the talent, so the animators can watch their voices and watch their facial expressions, and they may want to borrow some of those expressions in their animation. Page 204, a clear direction in the session. Number 1, for directorial clarity, designate only one person to address the talent, and that's usually the director, because if you have 3 different people giving directions, it's very confusing for the talent. They get flustered very quickly. The director must be very familiar with all aspects of production. The director is usually the person to give and explain notes. and recording engineer records the session. An APM and the PDM tracks the lines, script coordinators, and all that. Circle the takes. A circle take is one that's considered a keeper, or one that we should certainly consider. And normal pause is a natural pause, or natural breaks. This is the distance between one word and the next, or the amount of time that usually passes between the two. Page 205, storyboarding. You need to create panels that illustrate the vision of the director and tell the story in the most dramatic and effective way possible, all things considered. Storyboard artists illustrate scenes depicting 1. Character, 2. Animation, 3. Props, and 4. Environments. You should allow adequate time for storyboarding is very key to success. You shouldn't rush a storyboard artist because the more time you give them, generally the better they do. The storyboards can also come in handy to fix plot holes, gaps in logic, weak moments, scenes, or shots. Or maybe I should say it more often makes those things apparent when you start seeing visuals along with your script. And that's what a storyboard does. And the production should not commence until the board is finished. This is really a good idea, just so you know that whatever you're doing is for real and you're not going to be going in 2 days later and changing everything. Quote from a veteran storyboard artist is, "There's never enough time to do it right, but always time to do it over," which is sort of one of those Hollywood axioms. Page 206, getting started. Before the director hands out assignments to the storyboard artist, the following must be in order: the script, the voice track, character models, environmental designs, prop designs, office space and supplies, standardized page and panel setups, sample completed storyboard panels depicting the style and the complexity level, and secure online and cloud file sharing setup, for example on Dropbox. Page 206, radio play reference. The audio track is often edited into a radio play with stand-in sound effects for use in confirming the dialogue works and as a reference for storyboard artists. In this case, you would closely follow the line reads and pauses. The storyboard artists create appropriate poses, facial expressions, and gestures that become acting guidelines for the animators. Secondly, storyboard artists can take on the role of the cinematographers, working with the director to establish the shots. For example, can the action be covered by a single master shot, or would you need multiple cuts? Block camera angles. Blocking basically means the positioning of the camera and the talent, and for that matter, the objects in the background. And you establish character framing and composition. Page 206. Primary goal of a storyboard artist is to tell the story. Long format projects, for example features, the script may provide primary frame of reference. And it can take 9 to 18 months to complete and polish to completion. Often feature storyboards may evolve along with the project. The head of story/story supervisor, liaisons between director and artist, he manages a workflow, weekly meetings are usual, and attends editorial sessions. Now when a sequence is ready for storyboarding, the director or head of story assigns to the appropriate artist, and individual artists or sometimes different artists are given different shots or scenes. Page 207 through 208, establishing storyboarding ground rules. Page 208, screen ratios. The size of the panels must be standardized at the storyboard phase. For example, are you going to be doing it standard screen 3:4, or are you be doing it widescreen or 1:8:5? There are several different variations. High definition TV ratio is usually 1:77:1. Direct to DVD intended for limited theatrical release and feature films is usually 1:8:5, what you see in a theater. Widescreen format ratio, which is rather rare these days, is 2.239:1. For TV projects, the storyboard panels equal 3 panels per sheet on the average. Page 209, the 3 stages of storyboarding. Number 1, this 3-step system has become the industry standard. It's cost-effective, and it's highly conducive to telling a story. Page 209, thumbnail storyboard. It's the quickest way to map out the sequence. Speedy, a form of quick shorthand drawing. It allows for rapid changes, and many panels per page enable the flow of action to be seen. This is an example of that. This is a thumbnail storyboard. It's quick to draw, but you get the general idea. You don't have to put in all the details. You're only noticing the story in this case. Page 209, rough pass version. This may involve new, refined character placement, new camera angles, larger panels, more fleshed out and detail of character, action, and environment. They're easier to read for the non-artist, and characters are more on model. Backgrounds are easier to decipher, and it's easier to sync with the soundtrack. This is a rough storyboard. This is an example of a little bit further evolved. You can see the drawings are a little bit better. And you'll see a lot more about rough versus detailed storyboards when you see Doug Brown, the storyboard artist, talking about it. Page 209 through 213, the rough storyboard continued. It's reviewed by the legal department for potential concerns. They look at trademarks if necessary, copyright infringements. They're checked for broadcast standards and practice compliance. For example, riders in automobiles aren't wearing seatbelts. That can be a big deal, so you have to be aware and concerned about all these little nitpicky details like that. At this point, the storyboard will be used to gauge the following. Does the story structure work? Do we care about the characters, or do we care enough? Will it fulfill the buyer, the executive's expectations? How complex is the sequence? Can or should the sequence be simplified? If the segment requires further revision, how will it affect the budget? Page 212, Initial Story Reel. Once the rough pass storyboard is refined and approved, it is edited together with the soundtrack to create the initial story reel. It's sent to the producer and the buyer executive for notes, and then storyboard is revised to serve those creative notes. If they say, we need you to change these 4 things, you go in and change those 4 things. Once the revised version is approved, the storyboard is ready for the cleanup phase. Page 213 through 216, cleanup storyboard. This is when the panels are fully rendered to spell out all necessary details. It's especially helpful in the event of a handoff to a subcontracting studio, or vendors as they're called. Here's an example of the cleanup storyboard. You can see it's much cleaner, much more detailed. Now we're seeing backgrounds and foregrounds and characters. Page 212, building the story reel or animatic. Once the cleanup storyboard is refined and approved, the drawings are scanned and edited together with the soundtrack to create the animatic or the story reel. The animatic functions as a blueprint for the project. The editor begins the process of creating the full-length animatic. As completed, the shots are combined to check for hookups and other shots. Above all else, this is useful for honing and perfecting timing. The director begins to sculpt each shot, work on flow, massages the actions, and so on. This is sent to the producer and the buyer/executive for their notes, and then the storyboard is revised to serve those creative notes. Once the revisions are completed and approved, the storyboard is ready for the cleanup phase. This is a living record of the show, constantly in a state of flux. It's constantly being changed, revised, improved, more stuff is being added, and so on. Sound effects and music may also be auditioned here. This is when you try things out, see what works. This is also a temp track used for post-production guidelines. A temporary soundtrack is probably another way to put that. Page 217 through 218, Previs Storyboard. This is the stage in which you initiate the process of pre-visualization for computer graphic projects. It's a stage at which 2D drawings are used as guidelines to create and explore 3D space in the CG world. It enables the director and the artists to work in actual space in which characters are acting. Blocking is a live stage term. It basically means learning how to place the actors and the cameras. It enables the team to identify needed assets based on the camera position and the angle of view. Actually, we're still talking about blocking there. Process generally uses the proxy or low-res models because there's no reason to take the time to do the high-res models here. It incorporates limited movement of either characters and or the camera. It's helpful in trying to conceptualize complicated camera work. It's often used in action sequences, and it's helpful in planning stereoscopic or 3D shots. Pre-visualization applications. The one that comes to mind is one I did for The Boy Who Could Fly, back at Paramount with the director Nick Castle. Production designer was Jim Bissell. In this case, the director, Nick Castle, originally planned to do a very dramatic air-to-air shot. The director hoped to incorporate background plate footage of a carnival into which he hoped to insert green screen shots of a couple flying around and through the carnival rides. In one shot, we had hoped to place the camera in the car of an octopus ride. Ultimately, we learned the shots would be too time-consuming and expensive, but the pre-visualization sessions were very helpful in establishing scale and in determining which lenses and camera placements worked best. Page 210 through 220, Executive Screenings. This is the first exposure for the buyer and the executive to see how the words and visuals are coming together. Danger, this is a warning. You must make civilians fully aware of what to look for. For example, the shots fill appropriate screen times, but sometimes may lack action. It could be potentially boring or misleading and concerning to the unaccustomed or inexperienced person. And adding camera moves in a solid temp track can be very helpful in this stage. Page 220, Slugging Animation Timing. In the business of print or text, the space between letters is called slugging. In animation, the space created on soundtracks to accommodate action is also called slugging. A shot timing is paced to create the desired effect. Timing performance of actions is common. Afterward, the editor creates a track for a track reader to use to block the dialogue and the sound effects. Page 221 through 222, Exposure Sheets. Exposure sheets are dope sheets, operate as a frame-by-frame map of action. It includes details on all of the following: the shot number and the timing, the shot description, the name of the animator, the act or the sequence number, the sheet number, the description of action, the dialogue column, mouth chart information, columns for art levels, description of visual effects, camera notes, and the production number. And here is an example of an exposure sheet. Boy, am I ever familiar with these things. But this is you can see how this doesn't have the details written in, but you can see all the information that has to go on these things. Page 221, Track Reading. This is the process of phonetically transposing the dialogue track frame by frame. This is for dialogue breakdown, if you're trying to figure out lip sync in what shape is the mouth on a particular word pronunciation. Music beats on the click track are also transposed into the exposure sheet. It's utilized by outsourced animators and subcontractors, or what we call vendors. For a computer graphic project, paper-based exposure sheets may be replaced digitally. The greater the details are spelled out, the greater the chance for artistic success. Information must be concise, legible, and clear to avoid retakes. Page 224, Preparing a Shipment, Checking and Route Sheets. All materials must be thoroughly checked before shipment or transmission. The director double-checks all of the outgoing material. The storyboard must be conformed to final animatic before shipment or transmission goes to the subcontractor. The continuity checker reviews all elements, including cross-checked model packs, animatic, dialogue tracks, and exposure sheets. Page 224, the route sheet. The checker fills out the route sheet, provides a detailed record of materials sent, provides info on to whom the materials were sent, and the following information is noted on a route sheet: the studio name, the production title, episode number or sequence number, the name of the director, color stylist, or continuity checker, the breakdown of shot numbers, shot footage / timings, shot descriptions, the time of day, and effects information. And upon completion of these steps, materials are ready for shipment and transmission. Page 224 through 225, Songs. Songs must be established in pre-production stage. Songs can greatly enhance a project. It aids in global acceptance and success. It can move narrative. It can imply passage of time. It can convey aspirations or / motivations and so on. It can lead to soundtrack sales, and cross-promotional soundtracks help to promote the project in general. Page 227 through 228, title sequence and end credits. Title sequence introduces content of the show and the main characters. It also can be a marketing tool to promote the project. For a TV show, it can range 60 to 90 seconds. Once the concept is approved, the storyboard is created, reviewed, and approved. And here we see figure 8-26, the pre-production process. This is just generally to see how it goes through what some people call the pipeline, how it moves through a studio. And that concludes Chapter 8, Pre-Production of Producing Animation. Thank you for watching.